Thanks, guys, for coming. And so just to get a little bit of a sense for Griffin and I, so mostly before we introduce ourselves, so accepted student, right?
Yes.
And you accepted students, right? Accepted students and current student?
I'm a senior.
Senior, okay, awesome. You're in production period.
We work in production.
Okay, yeah. And
I'm a student.
student, okay, great. So that kind of gives us everyone a little glimpse of like who's here. So I guess I was hoping in this talk we can accomplish a few different things, and just talking to Griff is that one is give you a sense of what we did at BU and what we're doing, and like the things that we chose to do with film wise and communication wise, where we are now, and like what connections we can make between the two, and maybe then to do just some Q&A of where you're going, where you're at, the next step for the seniors and all that. So kind of go where you guys want to drive the conversation. So, that sound cool?
Yeah, I guess, did all of you guys apply to CGS, or did you guys apply to the film school, didn't get in, and then got into CGS? 'Cause that's how I was. And the funny story that I have is that I'm an identical twin, and my twin brother's SATs were probably 10 points higher than mine, and he got in, and I got into CGS. And I thought it was like the end of the world. Like I wasn't going to go to study film. And then I remember sitting in the auditorium during one of these, and the dean was like, this is the best part of college, where you come into it thinking you're gonna just go strictly into film, and you have these 2 years to figure it out. So like I leaned towards going to advertising, and then came back to film. And that's one thing I took from CGS. Besides people, my best friends in the world I met at CGS, or the College of General Studies. So, but yeah, that's one thing for now.
Yeah, and I was the same thing too. Like I had applied directly to the College of Communication for the film TV track, was referred to College of General Studies. In the end, as I'm sure you guys can tell, we've already been talking to the panel. Like I want to take it back for the world, but I started College of Communication, College of General Studies in fall of '04 with Griff, and so I did 2 years of General Studies, and which is the track, and then our sophomore year, Griff and I did our capstone project together, which is your capstone right now. And
Did you know each other as freshmen or sophomore?
We had ran into each other, similar to social circles, but then met sophomore year because you had to put a capstone team together, and it was just, collaboration of the minds, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it was. We had, I think, mutual friends. I was like really politically active at BU, and I ran for a bunch of student offices, so I'd always like talking for the JSA, so I was like that weird dude.
Everyone knew who Mark was, whether they knew him or not. But for you guys, capstone's like a long paper that you write with a team. For they give you how many weeks to write it? I don't know. Like a month. Yeah, you don't go to class. You just work on paper, and then you have meetings with professors. So
yeah, but quite an in-depth activity. So we first kind of formed teamwork there because we were in capstone together, and I felt like we obviously had a common rapport and like worked well together. So when we continued on to the College of Communication, were you in film 1?
I was not.
All right, yeah, but we were in film 2 together, and we ended up being in film 3 class together. For you guys, production has our film and TV department has a production track: film production 1, film production 2, film production 3. Which, and your name again?
Peter.
Peter. So what Peter's in, it's like the top class. We got to apply. It's only 20 students. It's like the best. It's a really nice opportunity. So Griff and I did our thesis film together, and we had a bunch of classes together. Lots of classes together. So which was convenient because we lived by each other. We could try to go to each other's class.
So how did you end up? When did you go to the LA? Is it LA campus? Is that what it is? Yeah. So when did you go to the LA campus for part of your 4 years or after?
Well, let me first say that generally, a lot of the times people will go to the BU in Los Angeles program, second semester junior year, first semester senior year, or some people.
It's almost like an abroad.
It is in the
Instead of going abroad, you're going to LA kind of thing. So.
Right. I chose to do a post-grad internship, so I did my 8 semesters or 4 years at BU, and then I walked with my class, but it's kind of a growing trend where people are just kind of tricking the system and we keep on paying and just overloading the credits. And so I call it a transitional program because we have the ability to actually, I think that's probably a good starting point because I'll say where I was from the LA program on, and we talked about like May on for you. So I did the internship program as a post-grad opportunity. Really glad I did that. It was sort of for 5 months. Was still under the safe havens of BU and had my immediate community there and academic support and all that stuff. Welcome, guys.
Hi, sorry.
Don't worry about it. And so we did internships during the day and classes at night. It was a pretty rigorous workload. I remember we work at 9 to about 6 and then drive to class. Class would be from 7 to 10. I had classes 4 or 5 days a week, so it was pretty an internship every single day.
But yeah, tell them where you were interning.
Oh yeah. So I was interning. My BU sets you up with these great internships. I was interning at a company called Strike Entertainment, and they have done Children of Men. They did Dawn of the Dead. They did the Step. It's the dance. The Bring It On. Yeah. Which was like a series that made them tons of money. And I also did a internship with what's called a post house, and they do all the special effects for lots of commercials. Now, the key about my internship was I worked in the same building as Curb Your Enthusiasm. Huge fan of Larry David. And I'm like, gosh, I'm not gonna. Hey, welcome guys, come on.
We're just auditing.
Oh, okay.
Little work there. We're listening.
Still have a seat.
So I was like, I can't be here in the internship program and not take a chance. And now you can't just walk into an office and be like, hey, here's my resume. That's very no-no in Los Angeles. So one day I was in the mailroom, talked to the guy in the mailroom who knew the associate producer in the Curb office. I was like, hey, maybe they need an intern. He's like, let me pass on your name. And so he did, and then she contacted me, and she's like, hey, we're all crewed up for now, but let me keep you on our list. We emailed back and forth. She turned out she went to Emerson, so we had that kind of Boston connection. Her boyfriend went to my high school. Like, small world, So I have my end, and so everyone talks about networking. Networking for me simply means, and what I just did my first time in LA, and Griffin, I'm sure can share like the kind of the East Coast networking style, is that I developed a list of people that we just met through our classes and through the internship. So every few months, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm employed or not, and when I say that, I mean, if you work freelance in film, you're working on a show, and then it'll end. Like, you don't quit or you don't get fired. It just ends, and then you pick up another show. So when I say working and not working, that's what I mean. Anyway, I just email people, and so I would email her and say, hey, I'm working. Hey, I'm not working now. Hey, I'm working. And then after my internship, I had a phenomenal opportunity working for Steven Spielberg, which if you have questions, we can get into that later. And then September, I ended my internship in January, September, a year after I met the associate producer on Curb. She emails me, and I had emailed her the day before. I said, "Hey, I'm in town. I'm not currently working." She emailed me the next day. She said, "Hey, the executive producer on Curb started this new series called The League on FX, and I'm an assistant. I think you'd be great for it." And so they brought me in and interviewed me. I got the job. I had a week of prep, and then we started shooting. And so that was my fault.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Now, how in the world does she know that you would be great? I mean, when you talk about these connections, I mean, how well did you know her and everything?
I can add in on this. Like, in our business, you're only as good as the last job you worked. So through verbal referrals, I mean, if you screw up on one job, don't expect to have that person as a reference on your next job. And that can go for any industry, film industry alone. I mean, 95% of the jobs I work these days are all through verbal referral. So, I mean, if you're willing to put your name on the line for someone and they don't do a good job, bad for your name. So, I mean, that's basically how it works. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's all you always hear, I'm sure. It's who you know, and I think that when I just talked to her early on, I think she read that I was serious and that I wasn't just emailing her for like a job right then and there. I was authentic about wanting to establish relationships out in Los Angeles, networking relationships in Los Angeles. And so when she passed my name on, they had done some research on me, which I didn't realize. So they contacted the office I was interning at and talked to one of the executive producers who guessed where he went to school. You. And so, it's sort of, I mentioned it on the panel, I wasn't joking. BU, along with other schools in Los Angeles, particularly Emerson and USC, that's a brand. Boston University, so they expect a certain quality of student. So that sort of brings up to the first few months after graduating. Why don't you kind of talk a little bit after graduation?
Okay. All right, so how do I go about this? So Mark went to LA, or was planning on going to LA by the end of the year. I have a lot of family in Boston. I didn't really want to make the trek, even though I have family out in LA. So I decided to, just stick it out and figure out something. So, I had my time off after graduation. I didn't sign some big contract that all the financial majors did, signing bonuses that they wanted to spend on European vacations. I just, hung out and started, seeing people that I worked in films with. Every summer we did a 48-hour film project festival. So, I started running into more and more people that were involved in festivals like that. And then I believe one night, it was probably 11 o'clock at night, I was at the supermarket down the street from here. And my brother and I are loading shopping bags into my car, and this guy on a bike rode by, and I was like, oh, that's Kevin. He was in my cinematography class from BU. And we're like, what are you doing these days? Because we're like, we're looking to get into the industry. And he's like, well, I heard that this company, Powderhouse, in Somerville, is hiring. And they're looking for field producers. So, he's like, but this was from a friend of a friend of a friend. I can't reference you or anything, but I heard they're hiring. And I was like, all right. So, I'll just shoot an email out. So my brother got home that night, shot an email straight to them, and he got a response, which is rare because a lot of these job posts get, 200 to 300 applicants. And I only know that because I actually worked in a resume office once for a production company. But I didn't get a response. They ended up having my brother go in for an interview. They liked him for the position, and then he worked there for a week, and he was like, well, you guys are hiring for this other position. My brother is just as good as I am at all this stuff. Can you give him an interview? And I went in the interview and did well with the interview, and they hired me. So they hired both of us. So we started off in Somerville, and we worked on an Animal Planet show called Dogs 101. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's, it probably provided enough dog information for me to ever work with dogs. But, being able to recognize that a dog's a pure breed on the side of the road is, not something you want to brag about, but I can do that. So from there, I started, PA tasks.
Just pull up some chairs if you can find the chair.
That's a PA term is production assistant. It's pretty much an entry-level position at any production house. And in school, I wanted to go into post-production, but at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with this industry because there's so many directions you can go. From marketing the films to working, to shooting with the camera, to doing anything. There's so many positions. You see it at the end of every movie on the credit list. So, my brother and I started out as production assistants, and I remember I was just logging footage, and I was, not making enough money to live my own yet, but it was good enough. I was doing it was exciting at that point. So, and then this position came up in the company where they wanted someone to go and travel and shoot all the puppy footage for the show. So basically you go to a house, whether it's in New York City or upstate New York or upstate Maine, anywhere in the New England area. I remember one shoot, I showed up to a trailer in the middle. I drove 4 hours and didn't see a house, and this lady had kittens that I had to shoot, and she couldn't find 3 of them when I got there. That's another story. But I started shooting all that stuff. My brother was doing the same thing, so they were renting us cars. We were traveling all over New England. Then we started getting recognized for the camera work we were doing. So they had us start shooting the interviews. So we went from production assistants to operators, which is a huge leap in the industry. And just to specify, reality TV is probably the main form of the industry income in this area, unless during the summer you get a chance to work on Hollywood films because of the tax credit. So like Tom Cruise was shooting a movie here over the summer, but they usually bring in their LA crews. So the second units will hire locals, but those are guys that have probably been doing it for at least 30 years. So
Yeah, really quick. Who's familiar with when Griff says tax credits for films? Is anyone familiar with that? Obviously, you should be. Really brief. Essentially, there's 2 new tax credits that are became popular about 3-4 years now.
Yeah.
I'd say. And there's a transferable tax credits, the biggest one, where essentially Massachusetts says to Tom Cruise, like, hey, you come to Massachusetts to film your movie, and what we're going to do is the money that you would have spent, that you are planning to spend in our state, and all the taxes that you would have normally paid on that, we are going to take that tax, wipe it, and actually give it to you upfront cash, basically to put into your movie. So it's incentivized. It's an incentive to come to our state. Louisiana's doing it. Michigan's really big with it now. Massachusetts,
But you'll notice, there has been a trend, since The Departed came out, there's been a lot more movies shot in Boston, and they'll shoot Boston as New York, Boston as Paris, all these other places.
Now, is that to compete with going to, what was it, Toronto? A lot of film industry to Toronto back then. Is it to compete?
I think the tax credit here is actually more beneficial than going to Canada now. Plus, you don't have to ship everything up to Canada. So, but getting back to what I was saying, I stuck with the reality TV industry because that's what there is here. There's sports, from the Bruins, Patriots, Red Sox, everything, to cooking shows because we have WGBH and the Public Broadcasting Network as well. And then there's reality TV for all types of networks. So I stuck with that. I started operating on that show, and then my contract ended at Halloween after I graduated. So I worked from June to Halloween, which is, I believe, roughly 6 months, because that's a standard contract in reality TV. And then as soon as my contract was over, I started looking for the next thing. And everyone was telling me when I was working, they're like, you gotta, do you have anything locked down for after this? And I was like, well, I still have 3 months left, I can figure it out. But, it gets slower and slower, and then, then it's done. So I didn't, in between my contracts, I believe I got signed on to my next show in January, and Animal Planet called again, and they were like, so my brother's name is Cliff, so Cliff and Griff is what they would call us, but they're like, so you guys want to go and live in Florida for 3 months? And I was like, well, Florida's not really where I figured I would end up, but I'll try it out. And we went down to Florida and we shot this show called Superfetch, which was on Animal Planet as well. And it's funny because that's when, Mark and I have been in contact, he came and visited a couple times, and that was when we started, I remember he'd be driving LA time to work in the morning, and I'd been working for 4 hours, and he'd be like, hey, just calling you, my 45-minute drive to work, or however long it was, seeing how things are going. Remember, did I tell you I'm working with Steven Spielberg? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm shooting dogs in Florida. So it was always a nice, conversation, because my industry was so different than what he's telling me he's seeing. And he's sending me text messages. He's like, you're not going to believe who I met today, or you're not going to believe what I've seen. And I'm like, oh, yeah, more dogs. But from that dog show, that ended in June, and I've been freelancing, which is essentially self-employment. So, all my friends that were in finance, a lot of them got laid off. So they've been on unemployment since the graduation in '08, or they've been bouncing back and forth to jobs. And I mean, our industry has been booming here. I mean, I'm 24 years old and I'm self-employed, which I'm not trying to brag, but like my friends that work in consulting firms now, they're like, wow, I wish I could be doing what you're doing now. They're like, well, I wish I could be driving Mercedes like you are right now. So, you know, there's always sacrifices, but.
Can I, along these lines, so if you're working for short jobs and then going from job to job, are you in, not exactly a union, but like a professional society for photographers and producers? And
I can tell you about Boston.
like, how do you do insurance and benefits?
Massachusetts offers packages. I'm in Cobra. I still have, you know, benefits from when I was working for Animal Planet, because I can't remember the time of it, but at some point I'm going to have to figure that out, but it's not up yet. I think I have another year. But there are hiring agencies. There's a place called Central Booking in Massachusetts. You can register, and that's basically how, if you want to get onto the films and be a production assistant or an office assistant, you sign up with this guy, Tim. Excuse me, and I believe it's like a $50 fee a month just to have your name on his list for production assistants. If you want to do anything else, like operating or anything else, I would think it's like a $70 to $80 fee. But I've luckily not had to join that. And as I was saying before, like our industry, like verbal referrals, like 90 to 100% of all my jobs now. For instance, like this past September, I shot a cooking show in Vermont. It's called Cook's Country. And I wasn't even shooting it, I was just helping light it. And they have like 7 camera operators on the show. And each of those guys live in the New England area. So now whenever they want to do shoots and they need someone to help out, they call me. And in fact, I was working at BU this morning. I told Mark that I might not be able to make it today, but they gave me an hour off. I'm actually helping out shoot recruitment videos, which you guys would probably see in auditoriums or in your high school if someone came to show you about BU on a laptop. So, all those operators have employed me since then. I've worked with NFL Films on the sidelines of the Patriots games. I did one thing for free, which we were talking about before, like just trying to get your foot in the door right out of college. I worked for the Boston Cannons, which is like a professional lacrosse team, and I shot all their web content, but it got me familiar with being on the sidelines of a professional athletic event. Because, you know, there's all types of stuff going on the sidelines, and if you're just standing there, you know, like stargazing, admiring, like, oh wow, that's so-and-so, or this is so-and-so, you know, you're going to miss that shot that you want to get. So that actually helped me out, because when I was on the Patriots sidelines and Tom Brady's standing next to me, I'm like, that's Tom Brady, but I got to keep moving. And it helped out too, because the same company I worked with for the cooking show actually does all of the exclusive ESPN interviews. So I had the pleasure of meeting Tom Brady a week before I was on the sideline. So like that star power was already gone when I got up there. And same deal with all the other stuff I've been doing. I mean, I don't know really where to go. I've worked with almost every sports team in Boston, and I did a thing with Rondo on the Celtics last week that was aired, I think. ESPN is crazy because most of the stuff I've worked on, there's like an editing period of maybe a week or 2 weeks. ESPN will drive it back down to Connecticut right after the shoot, and it will air that night. So, you know, just being on the ball, if you ever want to see what you worked on, I mean, it's almost instant as soon as it's on. So.
Yeah, I mean, Griff jokes around about like, oh, the dogs and the Spielberg thing, but I got to give Griff like a lot of credit. Is that to be able to consistently work, to be able to pay the rent and all those hopefully go out once a week or something. That takes something. And I think that what I love about our careers that we've chosen, and that what BU helps is that I think it builds a lot of character, because if you do have that finance job, it's sort of like there's that recruitment period, and either you get it or you don't, and that's sort of like a black and white. That might be simplifying it too much, but it's my experience of it. But with our careers, it's a constant campaign. You're on one show, where am I going to go next, and where am I going to go next, and where am I going to go next. To address the question about unions and all that, in Los Angeles we have unions. Now, I always felt that from like an Eastern point of view, there was sort of maybe more of a negative connotation of like a union, but there's the directors union or guild, there's the producers guild, there's the camera guild, there's the assistant director guild. You know, so these are all guilds / unions that you work into, the Screen Actors Guild, writing, or no, not writing, the Screen Actors Guild for acting, the WGA, the Writers Guild. And these are all, you want to essentially work your way in because there's a base rate that you need to get. And there's
pretty substantial.
Pretty substantial rate. And there's also, for instance, with the Screen Actors Guild, like if we wrap shooting one day at 7:30 at night, we can't begin shooting again until at least 7:30 the next morning with the actors, because those are union rules. Whereas reality TV, and my roommate who went to CGS, continue to come, he's been in the reality TV show world in Los Angeles. He has sometimes crazy turnarounds. Like he'll get home at 1 o'clock in the morning, he's back at the door at 6 a.m. I'm just like, I don't know how he does it, but this is sometimes crazy hours. I'm in a position where I'm going to want to produce, so I hope to get into the Producers Guild and eventually the DGA, which is the Directors Guild, down the line. But I've been very lucky to get these assistant to producer positions. I was what's called assistant script supervisor on Spielberg's film, which was a new position. It was just like needed to get filled, and so it wasn't really I wasn't earning any hours towards a certain guild for that job. You know, like if you're a production assistant, usually you'll log your hours, and after a certain amount of hours, you pay a fee and you get to go into one of the guilds. With the league, I was the assistant to the executive for producers, and then just recently, in February, I took on an opportunity working for the executive producer of House. So these are all assistant to producer positions, so it's not like a union, but it's kind of neat because it's sort of, I've noticed I've been able to more freely navigate the waters of a film set and kind of where do I want to go when you're attached to a producer like that. So I've been consider myself very, very lucky with the opportunities I've got. And the Spielberg gig was a BU job. My friend stood up for me in the production office and said, "Let's bring in this guy. I think it'll be great." The league, same thing. House, another BU alum working in the House office said, "Hey, let's bring this guy in." Like it's been all BU. So very, very like.
I can add to that. The executive producer of the show I was on in Florida is a BU alum as well. He actually went undergrad at BC and then screenwriting in grad school here. So, I mean, whether you know it or not, I mean, there's BU alumni everywhere in this industry.
So that's kind of, talked a lot. Like what I would say. So far, what questions do you might have? Yeah.
Where were you originally from? Before you came?
Yeah, right.
Or Brooklyn?
I'm from around here.
Okay.
I originally was born in the South Shore of Massachusetts, but I went to middle school and high school in Pennsylvania. That's where my family lives now. So
Was the transition with LA different? Like that's like an unnecessary.
Oh, good question. I want to address that. I'm going to talk, and I always like Griffin and I will have an argument.
Yeah, we have varying opinions on LA.
Which is why I wanted to have this talk with Griff, because I will admit, I am totally biased to LA, and I'm always like, Griff, you gotta move to LA,
I'm not going to do it.
Right. But, just because I'm saying that and just because I'm enjoying it doesn't mean that's for everyone. That's why it's important to have, separate but equal point of views. LA, in my opinion, I feel like there's a stereotypical negative connotation about Los Angeles, like, ooh, you moved to LA, ooh, you're selling yourself, you gotta, I have found that I've stuck to my guns of like who I am and as just a person, and I have survived thus far without compromising any of my like morals or like how I would generally go about things. Additionally, with LA is that I was sharing with Dean Resick earlier is that the transition has been unfairly easy. Like for me to go out to Los Angeles and there to be so many of Griffin's classmates and friends out there. It's great, whether it's in the work environment or, I mean, I'm literally in, Ralph's is like the food store chain out there. I'll be in Ralph's and bump into BU people. When I'm out running or going on a hike, I always wear my BU gear, like a BU shirt, because it's almost guaranteed you're going to bump into someone, if not from BU, from the
I
Northeast.
think Mark sees more of our classmates than I do, and I stayed in Boston, so.
Well, you know, I think that someone said earlier, I think Dean Elmore, that Californians are the second largest or third largest group of people in Boston University. And I think everybody's from LA or San Diego. It's really kind of amazing how many people come here to study them. And that's certainly a source of, you know, I mean, well, I guess the other thing is, you know, we have the wonderful Katzenberg Center upstairs, and that's from the Katzenberg, you know, Jeffrey Katzenberg and DreamWorks. And that whole network of people all know about BU and about CGS, and so BU is very, very much on the horizon in that way. And of course, people go back.
I mean, Nina Tassler, alum of BU, she is the head of CBS. Jay Rowe, who is actually a personal mentor for me, just because he's the one that really inspired me to do LA immediately after school. He's the senior vice president of HBO Films. But they're smart about what they do because they speak to BU students a lot. And I'll write, I haven't spoken to him recently, but I'll write him an email and he'll just email back and say, just call, like, here's my number, call me, I'm available. That's great, but they're smart about what they do because it's not a pie in the sky sort of thing because you wouldn't contact Nina Tassler or Jay Rowe to be like, hey, do you have an internship? Like, they don't know. Like, they get you in touch with, like, the Griff or Mark, who's on the assistant level and have, like, our ears to the wall as far as, like, what's available.
Yeah, I mean, the people that go to BU, you're going to meet people at BU that you probably wouldn't meet at other schools. I mean, I remember I was moving in to my dorm room, and O.J. Simpson was moving his daughter in to the same dorm. And then my lacrosse teammates, I know this was 5 years ago, so they're a little bit different, but still, like, you're just saying, like, the Katzenbergs, Katzenberg's son was dating one of the Olsen twins, and I remember seeing her on ComEd. And, like, the girl I walked in graduation next to me, her father is the head of Fox LA. And, I mean, the people I met, and most of these people I met at CGS, not even in the film program. So, I mean, I took a lot from that. The goalie of my lacrosse team's father was the CEO of Sony Picture Classics. I mean, a lot of people from LA come to BU. I mean, I'm still in touch with almost every one of them. I mean, it really makes it a small world, especially when you go to LA, like Mark did. So.
You guys familiar with the Newhouse program at Syracuse at all?
Yes, I didn't apply to Newhouse, but I got into their film school because they're separate. I believe it's mostly broadcast and TV. I chose to go to BU though because they had. I didn't apply to Newhouse. I didn't like the 6-hour drive, first of all, but I chose to go to BU because they were pushing liberal arts, whereas if I went to the film school there, I would have just been shooting films for 4 years. And I didn't look at that as, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but I was 18 years old and I wanted to figure it out. So that's one of the other reasons why I came here. But.
I remember there was a local school that I had applied to. My dad really wanted me to go there because it was like, a couple bucks a month or something. No, but it was a good school. But I remember I went there, and they were I went to like the film school open house, and they were like, NYU or USC or BU, like you might be able to look at a camera, your junior year, and like maybe can touch it your senior year, but like we just throw you right in and make whatever you want. And then I was like, oh, that's great. And then I went to the student showcase and watched the films, and I was like, oh my God, it's so horrible. They never learned the craft of filmmaking. So I think, I mentioned this article in the panel, but Variety Where's the cover? Well,
It wasn't there.
oh, here it is. You guys, that kind of a familiar logo? Variety. This is called the trade. So what we do in Los Angeles, you get up in the morning and you read the trades. It's like you got to know, what. Yeah. And it's like official gospel of the day, not like Lindsay Lohan did this. It's it's like Spielberg signed a new deal or something. So and this is the industry that you work in. So they did an article in the Educational Impact Report, and they featured Boston University in it. And there's a line somewhere in here, but it talks about how BU it's gaining this huge reputation because the students are, and you may have heard this line before, but the students are thinkers, and they're problem solvers, and they're communicators, and they're creative people. It's like a way of going about things, and they learn the craft of film.
Maybe you could talk about, I remember last year, you said when it came that you were up for the job as assistant script manager with the Spielberg thing. It wasn't exactly something that you had been trained to do, but that you felt like you could do it, partly because of your background, including even the capstone. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, this was, if you've seen Avatar, I'm sure you've heard like the news around it. It just took a lot of time to film, and the technology they used was just bizarre. Well, Avatar was the first of many 3D motion capture films. 3D motion capture is the technology they use. We won't get into it because that'll be like a 2-hour seminar on what that is. But the film I was on with Spielberg was called The Adventures of Tintin, Secret of the Unicorn. Tintin is an old Belgian comic that he bought the rights to, and now they're making movies.
Yeah, it's a German Shepherd.
Right.
I learned about that on dog shows.
Interdisciplinary. So the way, just the technology and all these cameras, it was new for them. It's like new for Peter Jackson, new for Spielberg. And it's amazing to be, it's like humbling to watch them being humbled by the technology they're using. So they didn't originally plan for this position, but they were like, this is kind of what we need to get done. Here's a new interface we're using, but we need you to kind of figure it out. And they knew Elise, and my friend Elise in the production office, she was a BU student, so they really, I found out later, like I would love to glamorize it. I mean, what you said, Dean, is absolutely true. Like I made direct correlations, particularly from CGS to my job, but it also came down to, you really made a good impression on us, and we really trusted Elise that another BU student would be able to do the job she was doing. The one story that I will share that had like a direct correlation, and I told my humanities teacher about this, Professor Masters, is that we learned from her of different ways of interpreting literature and knowledge and synthesizing it and spitting it back out. Well, there was a final scene in Tintin where Peter Jackson rewrote that part of the script, but he just gave it to us in bullet points for Spielberg to direct. So he directs the scene, but you need a final script. So we had bullet points, and then what was filmed, but there was no script. So that night when we were in the office, my boss says, "What happened?" And I was like, what? You should dictate to me what happened, like in script form. So I just kind of was like, okay, and I, in the art of screenwriting, kind of dictated to what had happened. And so 2 weeks later, when we were going through the final script, I'm going through and making sure everything's matched up, and I get to this page and I'm reading it, and I said, oh my God, it's like almost a page of my own words in the final script. Now, for the record, I didn't creatively say something, and then they were like, that's a good idea, we're going to do that. I simply watched what had happened and regurgitated it, but it was neat that my words are on this final script up there. So that was kind of cool.
Do you in terms of taking classes on film or TV film? Do you have a preference? And is it a hard transition to go between the two?
I can help with that. I've mostly been shooting stuff on HD cameras.
and those change every single week. So just being able to know how to white balance and all this other stuff is something I learned in film, where with exposures, I mean, sound's always going to be sound, but the way you capture the videos is, technology is always improving. Everyone's saying, like, film's going to be dead in a year or 2 years, and, Hollywood still shoots movies on film. And I think that there's a lot easier of a transition to go from film, where you can't see what the final project is by opening up a monitor and watching it over again, and going from that to video, where you have video playback. So I'm kind of biased. I'm more of a film fan, but I'm making a living working in TV, but that's just my industry. So
You'll find that this is a highly contested topic. I'm sure
People write books about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's a huge debate. Like when people say, "Oh, film's going to be dead," like people get infuriated. This is kind of where I fall in the issue. Is that I think that at the end of the day, I hope that as filmmakers we can call ourselves storytellers. We tell stories. We hopefully tell them well, whether it is through film or video or cell phone movies or web movies. So I think that we need to, whatever side of the fence you fall on, you need to be conscious of all the new emerging media, and can we still deliver a product that people want to watch, and so that being said, I am so much appreciative of doing film at BU. I also worked with video, at BU, but I think for me, it had me kind of, because I had been working with video before college too. I think that working with film had me slow down the process. It made us think, because film too, we're paying, as you know,
it's like
lots.
$200
Yeah.
for a magazine of 10 minutes of film.
Yeah. Now, we're really to tell you really quick that like schools like NYU, they pay for your film stock, but they own the rights to your film. Where at BU, you pay for your film stock, but you own the rights to your film.
Yeah. So if you get into Sundance with the film that you made here, you can just be like, all right, well, I can sell this now. Whereas if you're at NYU or USC or the bigger film schools, and they're paying for your film stock, they legally own it. So you have to purchase it from them before you can even do anything else with it. So
Yeah.
that is one benefit of it, the big benefit.
So I just feel that if you only learn video, it's not all transferable to film. But if you do learn film, it's all transferable to video. So I personally am appreciative of learning the film process, slowing it down, really thinking about what you need to do. Thanks, guys.
Can I bring up something? I seem to remember you saying, Mark, that even as a freshman, you were already helping out at COM people with films and things. So you weren't waiting until you were junior in COM to kind of get immersed in the COM culture. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Great that you mentioned that, especially for the prospective students, because we didn't get it today, but we'll often hear like, oh, if my son or daughter's going to college general studies, does that mean they don't get to do anything until junior year? Absolutely not. In fact, our senior year, we were working on a thesis film. Actually, it was 2 years ago yesterday. I did the open house panel, and I was like, hey, does any prospective students want to come out to a real live film set today? And I actually brought like 3 students out to help us with our film. There are BU College of Community. Do you want to kind of talk about BU TV a little bit and the opportunities?
I mean, sorry, our phones are going off, but could be a job, but or I have to go back to work. Either way, they'll leave a message. In terms of BU TV, or
yeah, well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's from the moment you get here, like go over to COM if you want to get involved. We run a BU TV, which is all original content, all student produced, directed, written, and they need not that they're like struggling, but I mean, to sit here and say, oh, I'll have to wait for 2 years is a shame, because you can be a producer, a director by second semester.
Plus, you can work with people that have already gone through what you've gone through, and they've already made mistakes, and you can be a step ahead when you get to that level of schooling, where you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to to make sure the magazine's locked so my film doesn't shoot out the side of it when I start rolling. Because I saw that happen when I was a freshman, that type of stuff. So, but.
Yeah, there's tons of opportunities, not only with BTV, but look, these student films, like, we sometimes bite off a lot, especially the Film 3 films, and it's just to have eager freshmen or sophomore that are willing to do whatever, I mean, like life-saving, you know? So don't pass up that opportunity.
Right. In terms of coming here and wanting to go into the film industry, like I've known I wanted to be a director forever, but I guess it's just a little intimidating to see like how the pathway from BU over works. Like in both cases, like I know, like for me, I want to do feature films, but still getting experience is like equally important, and like even working on a documentary film can really do well in the community. So how?
Well, I can say, like, I mean, there were kids that were making films when we were here that went to Sundance, the Zapti brothers. I mean, they're making films for a living now, and they were at Sundance 2 years in a row. And I didn't know them that well. My brother knew them. I don't know if you did, but what I would say is that BU, the amount of equipment they have, the quality of the equipment, the editing bays, the Katzenberg, they donated all of this equipment, and they actually gave them enough money to maintain that level of equipment for the next however many years. Having that being said, like, if you have the next script that's gonna, be sold to, Tom Cruise, I know we talked about, or Spielberg, you're gonna have the ability to produce it and make it with the equipment here, and then deliver it to wherever it needs to go. And they have all types of deliveries, whether it's tape or DVDs or film stock. I mean, and if they don't have it, they know somebody in the area that can help you do it.
There's, yes, and I'll add that there is a tip-top tiny percentage. I don't know what it is, but you come out with your thesis film, and somehow it gets across like Spielberg's desk. In fact, there was a guy that came up to me in the panel and said that his friend is now a director, and he did a thesis film that Spielberg saw and gave him a picture deal. But that's like a small percentage. I think we would at one point or the other would have been like, that would be great,
What about the director that came and spoke to us in Production 3? He directed The Express. Anybody? He also directed October Road. He had our same Production 3 professor when he was in school, and now he directs these huge movies. If you saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't recognize him as like a guy that lives in LA and makes millions of dollars a year. But I remember we showed up for class one morning, and he's just sitting there. And he's like, yeah, through last Production 3 class, I brought scripts and storyboards. This is how we do it in LA, and we're going to watch this. And then we're going to have a Q&A. Mark and I actually had to leave to go and finish shooting our film, but I mean, that just the opportunity alone. I could live in LA for the next 10 years and never come into that close of a contact with somebody. So
I think it's important to make sure that you have your vision, like your goals, and stick to that, and don't abandon them. But at the same time, have a bigger picture in mind. There's a lot of people that want to direct. I think that you need to focus on that in school. But when you finish school and move on, if you aren't that tip-top niche that gets you do a film so great, someone say, let's give you a 3-picture deal for Screen Gems. That might happen, but in case it doesn't, you want to have that perspective of, yes, I want to direct, but I'm willing to be that PA and do all the grunt work.
Don't be too proud.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I worked with people that did that, and they're still PA. And I'm, kids that only wanted to shoot stuff, and they didn't want to fetch coffee. They didn't want to, do lockup, which is basically babysitting this expensive equipment while other people are doing work. Because if you leave and someone steals it, you're fired. So people that were just too proud to do that. You know what? You put your time in, and if you're good at what you're doing, you're gonna get picked up.
You know, some years ago we had Richard Gladstein come and speak with our students, and also comm students. And Richard Gladstein went to CJS, went to comm and everything, and he was talking about how he got into the business, and he had a job in LA, and he was like delivering B videos and helping organize them. And I didn't even realize this, but apparently there's a bunch of movies that are made just for video, you know. So they were like so bad. He said, "Oh, geez, I could do that." So he actually got a chance then to like make one of those and everything. And then I still didn't get how this all happened, but he got together Reservoir Dogs, and then he had all these fantastic actors, and then he did Pulp Fiction, and he had all these movies, and it all kind of stepped one step after the other, and it was, it was not a dramatic, okay, here, make a major movie, but he was very intelligent, very, very driven, and he knew what he wanted to do. And one thing that struck me too was someone in the audience asked him, "What did you learn at comm that helped you become successful at this?" And he said, "Well, actually, not that much." And what he said was, at CGS, he learned to become serious, because he thought in his life, if you were goofing around, you weren't going to do anything. So he really learned how to study and everything. And then he did the book, the movie Cider House Rules, right?
Right.
And they asked him, "Well, how did you do that?" And he said, "Well, my wife was reading this great book, and she said, this would be really good. This is interesting." So he read it, and then he said, "Oh, I could see this being a movie." And then he put together Cider House Rules. And what I realized was, he was a guy who married a woman who reads books, right? And then he read books, and he had the idea of how to make a film. He had the vision of that out of literature. And the idea that he had the initiative, and he was aware of the world, and he read, and he had he knew how to obviously make contacts and things that we were just talking about, and that led to a very prominent career. And
you need to be able to say not how's this supposed to happen, instead of say how am I going to make it happen.
Yeah, I asked that director before I left. I was like, "Listen, I don't have a job come May. How do I do this?" He's like, "Listen, it's not overnight. You're not going to be hired. You're not going to sign a signing bonus like your friends in, the school management or anything." He's like, "It's going to take time, and if you can't, you might have to find a side job." Like one of my bosses told me he was delivering flowers while he was working for free at a production house, and he would deliver flowers every Saturday and Sunday, and then from Monday to Friday, he would just work for free. And he did that for 3 years, I think, and now he's an executive producer, and he writes TV shows for a living, and he went to BU. So, I mean, it's, you put your time in, and, good stuff will come in.
I think as far as something to leave you with, as far as because I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't know what the best answer is going to be for you, but something I've used for myself is when I'm faced with two options, I choose the option that I would regret more if I didn't do it. That makes sense. So I need to go to bed. For me, if I could go to bed at the end of the night with no regrets from my day, at least I made that choice. I was like, well, if I didn't do this, I would regret it more. So I'm going to do it. That's kind of what I use, and it's worked. So, or it's helped me poke along so far.
I noticed it's about 4 o'clock, and so maybe I'm going to suggest that we try to wrap this up. If anybody has any more pressing questions.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So what kind of curriculum did you guys sort of, other than studying the film and TV, what else did you study or
Which
concentrate in?
school? In the film school or CGS?
In your junior and senior year, don't you have to concentrate on something else as well? Or
Yeah, I did. I mean, on top of the liberal arts background, and again, that freed up for Griffin and I, well, what else do we want to do?
Right.
So on top of film, I did political science.
I did economics, which actually was a pleasure because I had to take 3 actual extra courses to even be able to take the courses I was required to take. So.
I know that Griff has to run back upstairs to go back to work, but I'm on vacation, so I'll stick around if anyone has any more questions. But I hope this is beneficial.
Well, I want to thank you both. Really, this has been great, I think, and really appreciate it. By the way, this is the 6th year. I didn't realize that Mark has come to these open houses and everything, starting as a freshman. So
Yeah.
this is a great example of alumni giving back, and I appreciate it very much.
I'm starting to get worried now because I think that soon I'm going to be too old to be and then I won't be back. But
Thank you so much.
Thank you.